The night didn't begin with fear. It began with music, laughter, and crystal chandeliers scattering warm light across a ballroom where success wore tuxedos and silk gowns. But fear has a way of slipping in quietly, like a shadow that doesn't announce itself until it's already too close. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, a single father was already moving, his body deciding before his mind could catch up, his heart choosing love over life in a split second that would change everything. Daniel Carter had learned long ago that life didn't wait for you to be ready. He was 37, with tired eyes that had seen too much and hands that carried the memory of holding his daughter through fevers and nightmares. Being a single dad wasn't something he had planned, it was something life handed him after his wife died in a hit-and-run accident 7 years earlier. Since then, Daniel had lived for one purpose only, to keep his little girl, Lily, safe. Every morning he packed her lunch. Every night he checked the locks twice. Love had sharpened his instincts, and loss had taught him how fragile everything was. That night, Daniel wasn't supposed to be at the gala. He worked as a private security consultant, and his usual jobs were quiet, office buildings, discreet transport, low-risk events. But someone had called in sick, and the extra money meant Lily could finally join the school art program she dreamed about. Daniel never said no when it came to her dreams. So he put on a borrowed suit, clipped on his earpiece, and walked into a world that didn't look anything like his own. Across the room stood Sophia Reynolds, the CEO's daughter. 22, brilliant, and still learning how heavy her family name was. To the media, she was privilege wrapped in elegance. To those who knew her, she was kindness that hadn't yet been worn down by the world. She smiled easily, listened carefully, and never looked down on people who stood behind her instead of beside her. Daniel noticed that about her right away, not because he was impressed, but because respect was something he rarely saw directed his way. The gala was meant to celebrate a major merger, one that would make Reynolds Industries even more powerful. Speeches were given. Glasses clinked. Applause filled the room. And beneath it all, unseen and unheard, a man with a gun moved through the crowd with a purpose that had nothing to do with celebration. Daniel felt it before he saw it. A shift in the air. A tension that made the hair on his arms rise. Years of experience and years of fatherhood fused into one instinct. His eyes scanned the room, landing on a figure that didn't belong. The man was dressed well, too well, but his posture was wrong. His movements were stiff, rehearsed. And then Daniel saw the glint of metal. Time slowed the way it does only in moments that matter. Daniel didn't think about Lily's smile or her laugh or the way she fell asleep with her hand curled into his shirt. He didn't think about the future or the past. He thought only of the young woman standing a few steps away, unaware that death had chosen her as a target. The gun came up. The shot rang out. And Daniel stepped forward. Pain exploded through his chest like fire, knocking the breath from his lungs. The force sent him crashing to the floor, his body curling instinctively, not to protect himself, but to shield the person behind him. Chaos erupted. Screams tore through the room. Guests ran. Security rushed in. And Sophia Reynolds stood frozen, staring at the man who had just taken a bullet meant for her. As Daniel lay there, the world narrowing to sound and color, he heard her voice, trembling and broken, asking if he could hear her. He wanted to answer, to tell her not to worry, that she was safe now. The words barely made it past his lips, but she heard them anyway. "You're safe now." The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and shouted instructions. Daniel drifted in and out, his thoughts clinging to Lily like a lifeline. He wondered if she would remember him as strong. He hoped she would remember that he tried. At the hospital, surgeons worked through the night. The bullet had missed his heart by inches but shattered a rib and damaged his lung. He survived, but survival came with consequences, long recovery, medical bills, and the quiet fear that he might not be able to work again. Sophia didn't leave the hospital. She sat in the waiting room long after the cameras were gone, long after her father's advisors told her it was time to go. When Daniel woke up, groggy and aching, she was there, tears sliding down her face as she thanked him in a voice that barely held together. Daniel tried to brush it off. He said anyone would have done the same. But they both knew that wasn't true. News of the incident spread fast. Headlines called Daniel a hero. Social media lit up with praise. But praise didn't pay rent, and it didn't tuck Lily into bed at night when Daniel couldn't lift his arm without pain. The challenges came quietly after the applause faded. Physical therapy was slow and humiliating. Some nights, the pain was so bad he had to bite down on a towel so Lily wouldn't hear him cry. He worried constantly about money, about being strong enough, about whether one moment of bravery had cost his daughter the future he'd promised her. Sophia felt that weight too. Guilt followed her everywhere. She saw Daniel's face every time she closed her eyes, heard his voice saying she was safe. She couldn't accept that his life had been nearly destroyed while hers continued as before. Against her father's cautious advice, she reached out. She visited Daniel's small apartment, met Lily, and saw firsthand what sacrifice looked like when it lived in a cramped space filled with second-hand furniture and unconditional love. Lily was shy at first, peeking out from behind her father's leg. But Sophia knelt down, smiled, and told her how brave her dad was. Lily's eyes lit up, pride shining through fear. In that moment, something changed. The story stopped being about a CEO's daughter and a security guard. It became about a family that had been broken and another that refused to let that be the end. The challenges didn't disappear overnight. Daniel struggled with his sense of identity. He had always been the protector, the provider. Now he needed help, and that was harder than any physical pain. Accepting support felt like failure. Sophia faced her own battle, convincing a world that her gratitude wasn't charity, that her actions came from respect, not pity. Together, they navigated awkward conversations, public scrutiny, and the pressure of expectations that had nothing to do with who they really were. Resolution came not as a single moment, but as a series of choices. Sophia helped set up a foundation to support families of first responders and private security workers injured in the line of duty, insisting Daniel's story not be the headline but the inspiration. Daniel, after months of therapy, found a new role training young recruits, teaching them not just how to protect, but why it mattered. Lily joined her art program, painting pictures of heroes that looked suspiciously like her dad. Years later, the memory of the gunshot still echoed, but it no longer defined them by fear. It defined them by courage, by compassion, by the ripple effect of one selfless act. Daniel learned that being a hero wasn't about never falling, it was about standing up for others even when it cost you everything. Sophia learned that safety isn't something money can buy, it's something people give. And Lily learned the most important lesson of all, that love is louder than fear, and that one person's bravery can change countless lives. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness and courage still exist in this world, we invite you to be part of that ripple. Please comment below and share your thoughts. Your words might inspire someone more than you realize. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support our channel Ripple of Love, where we believe every small act of compassion can create a wave that changes the world. The months that followed were quieter, but they were not easier. Quiet didn't mean peace. It meant long nights, slow mornings, and the kind of silence that gives worries too much room to grow. Daniel learned this quickly. When the noise of sirens and hospital monitors faded, he was left alone with his thoughts, his pain, and the responsibility of being everything Lily had left. Recovery tested him in ways the bullet never could. His body healed unevenly. Some days he could lift Lily without thinking, other days, even tying his shoes sent a sharp reminder through his chest that he was no longer the man he used to be. The worst part wasn't the pain, it was the fear that crept in when Lily watched him struggle. Children notice everything. She never said it out loud, but Daniel saw it in her eyes. What if Daddy can't protect me anymore? That fear cut deeper than any wound. Money became another silent enemy. Insurance covered part of the medical bills, but not the weeks of missed work, not the physical therapy sessions that stretched on endlessly. Daniel sold his motorcycle first. Then a few tools he rarely used. He skipped meals without telling Lily, claiming he'd already eaten. Pride is a heavy thing, and letting go of it felt like losing another piece of himself. Sophia noticed the changes even when Daniel tried to hide them. She called often, sometimes just to check in, sometimes to ask advice she didn't really need. Over time, those calls became something more natural, less formal. They talked about life, about loss, about the strange guilt that comes with surviving when someone else paid the price. Sophia admitted that she still woke up some nights hearing the gunshot, seeing Daniel fall. Success and wealth hadn't prepared her for that kind of helplessness. One afternoon, Sophia arrived unannounced with her father. Daniel stiffened immediately. Powerful men made him uncomfortable, they always had. But Mr. Reynolds wasn't there as a CEO that day. He was there as a father who had almost lost his child. His voice shook when he thanked Daniel, not with polished words for the press, but with the raw gratitude of a man who knew his life would have been shattered without another man's courage. It wasn't charity that followed. It was opportunity. Mr. Reynolds offered Daniel a position within the company, not as a favor, but as recognition of his experience and integrity. A role designing safety protocols, training teams, preventing tragedies instead of reacting to them. Daniel hesitated. Accepting meant stepping into a world he'd never belonged to. But when he looked at Lily, drawing quietly at the table, he understood something important. Protecting her now meant accepting help, even when it bruised his pride. The transition wasn't smooth. Daniel struggled with self-doubt. Boardrooms felt colder than battlefields. Some people saw him as a symbol, others as a reminder of vulnerability they preferred to ignore. He learned to speak up, to trust that his voice mattered. Slowly, respect replaced pity. His experience saved lives, events redesigned, risks reduced, threats neutralized before they could ever become headlines. Lily changed too. She laughed more. She slept better. Her drawings shifted from dark scribbles to bright colors and open skies. At school, when asked about her hero, she didn't name a superhero. She said, "My dad. Because he's brave even when he's scared." Sophia found her own path forward. She stepped out of the shadow of her last name, becoming a voice for responsibility and compassion in corporate spaces that rarely talked about either. The foundation grew, touching families who had been forgotten after their moment in the news passed. Every letter of thanks reminded her that survival comes with responsibility, to honor sacrifice by making sure it matters. Years later, at a small community event, Daniel stood watching Lily speak into a microphone, her hands trembling slightly as she talked about courage. About how safety isn't walls or guards or money. It's people. People who choose to stand in front of danger for someone else. Sophia stood beside him, tears in her eyes, knowing that one moment of terror had rewritten all their lives, not with tragedy, but with purpose. The world is full of noise, fear, and uncertainty. But sometimes, one decision, one step forward instead of back, creates a ripple that spreads farther than we can ever imagine. Daniel didn't step in front of a bullet to be remembered. He did it because love made the choice for him. And that love continues to move, quietly changing lives, reminding us that courage still exists in ordinary people. If this continuation touched your heart, tell us what part moved you the most in the comments below. Your thoughts matter, and your voice can inspire others. Support our channel, Ripple of Love, by liking, sharing, and subscribing, because every story shared creates another ripple, and together, those ripples can change the world.